Welcome to the ProLife Team Podcast. I'm here with Jor-El, and we're going to talk about the pro-life world and how there is room for growth and locations and hours of operation and services in order to better serve those who have a need for help, who are in the abortion vulnerable space and who need love and care as if God wanted to help them right where they are. So, Jor-El, I am so excited to have you here. Welcome to the Pro-Life Team Podcast. Would you introduce yourself as if you were talking to a room of executive directors of pregnancy clinics?
Happy to, Jacob. Grateful to be here. Thanks for the opportunity. I'm Jor-El Godsey, president of Heartbeat International, and I'm always glad to be in a room full of executive directors of pregnancy help efforts, wherever they are around the world.
Awesome. So and in the description, we'll have a link to this report or this article about room to grow. So tell me how this article got started. Tell me about what are the roots, and then let's just go ahead and start talking about what your findings were when creating this piece.
Sure. Heartbeat celebrated its 50th anniversary in 2021. And was 50 years of the pregnancy help movement in particular. Heartbeat was called into existence by the fledgling pregnancy help movement back in the 60s. So we started in 1971, but we started then because people had already been doing this before Roe. There were those trying to reach out and help women have another decision and have an alternative to abortions. In fact, that's what Heartbeat International was originally known as Alternatives to Abortion International. And therein began the adventure. In 1968, the very first pregnancy center opened as a standalone effort. That we understand was kind of the beginning of this, even the concept or the method of how to deliver life-affirming help to those who are facing unplanned pregnancy. So we were celebrating and looking back on the arc of all of that, and we were, it's very exciting being Heartbeat International. We get to talk about these other networks that exist in other parts of the country. We are connected with many or most of them, if not all of them. And it kind of occurred to me like, hey, I was actually in some other article, newspaper article. I was reading about per capita, and I was thinking, is like, okay, that's a good tool. Let's do some research and let's just put the numbers down and see. And I was really looking at the international side of things and wondering how things were internationally. But then I turned around and did them state by state and eventually county by county. And it was it suddenly became obvious. It's like, wait a minute, we're very excited to have 2,750 or 2,800 pregnancy help locations in the U.S. But is that enough? And do we need more? And if so, how much more and how many more and where do we go with those? And that was the idea that began to kind of coalesce into what this white paper that I wrote last year called Pregnancy Help Centers Room to Grow.
Yeah, and it seems like when thinking about the concept, there's always it seems like there's an evergreen need for more places that will provide healthy, positive experiences for people, especially in these pockets that have been identified as not having any pregnancy clinics in those counties, perhaps. And meanwhile, maybe there's not much competition, but nonetheless, there's people there, and those people need service and healthy options and healthy support, which makes a lot of sense. And then also, when it comes to the highly populated areas, there's usually room for more services to be rendered when there's a density involved. And one of the things that I often think about is, like, I feel like there's always room for growth because God's fingerprints are ever present in this pregnancy clinic movement. And there's like never ending stories of how like God is honoring this work and supporting and growing this work. And so I feel like pouring into it makes perfect sense to be like, if God's will had a bullseye, like this would be this would be a really good zone to be hitting.
That's a great way to put that, Jacob. The understanding I have is the pregnancy help movement is an outgrowth of the church. It's really the church in action. Now, that's not to say that people um, who are have no faith can't be involved or shouldn't be involved. We certainly welcome everyone to be part of this, but it really is a manifestation of the practical outreach of the gospel of Jesus Christ as we try to be the hands and feet of Jesus in someone's life. And that to me is one of the most amazing things that happens at a pregnancy center is when a complete stranger, we sit down with a complete stranger and intentionally enter into their lives in order to give them the opportunity for life affirming options. And so you described it well. There's always room for that, and always room for us to grow that. And we kind of coalesce that into a thought that every woman should be loved and supported in her pregnancy. And unfortunately, in our culture, that doesn't happen enough. And so, but the heart of the pregnancy help movement is just that: love her, into life affirming decisions, care for her, help and make sure that she knows that she has true choice and true options available to her.
Yeah, and I love that analogy of like this is the hands and feet that reflect, God's hands and feet. The only thing I would add to that would be I often see God's heart reflected in the executive directors, and like they're essentially working so hard to provide free, high quality medical services, and the level of care and just the outpouring of energy and compassion. It reflects God's heart so well, that I feel like we have such incredible executive directors across the country that are just doing amazing things, providing medical services while also fundraising so that they will be completely accessible to everyone who may or may not be able to afford those services, which is pretty much just sort of, it's amazing.
Yeah, and I appreciate that we're talking to executive directors. The good news is that over 50 years, the look and feel of a pregnancy help center has grown over time and become a more than just one person situation. It's become where that executive director is merely the representative of many individuals who are making that local mission grow to make it happen. So they're the ones who get to sit in the hot seat, right, in the big seat, but they have a number of team members who are helping them envision what's happening, helping them fulfill the mission and vision that they've been called to. And so we have a number of nurses, we have a number of professionals who are involved. We have a myriad of volunteers. So we did a survey and trying to understand how big the teams are now that are. We know the lone executive director scenario is still out there, but it's just more and more become bigger teams, more involved, making that happen.
So one of the areas that I was um, pondering after reading your article was which areas need growth. Like geographically, I think you've identified that there's room for growth when it comes to new areas or maybe certain population dense areas. I feel like that was being highlighted. But then, well, yeah, and another area would be like services, and that also was highlighted, such as 72% providing ultrasound. I feel like that would be pretty well served if that was even higher.
Yes.
And then STI testing, childbirth classes, and then one of the numbers that I sort of longed to see, and I've got a feeling you might have a pulse on it, would be the APR when it comes to how many clinics are. And I know that's brand, new as in like less than 8 years ish or
Mm.
however long it's been around. But yeah, so relatively the newest kid on the block, but at the same time, growing very quickly. So I'm wondering, yeah, where that one might be, and that might be in the follow-up report, perhaps.
Right. That's still unfolding as far as the abortion pill reversal, and it's still small in compared compared to the numbers that are out there of people that are participating
Sure.
in chemical abortion. But that's our vision, is to grow that each and every month, every year. We're growing that. We've seen a 60% increase since last year, and we only see that going up as women step into that reality and change their minds, and we need to be there for them. When we talk about services, one of the things that what we really focused on in this particular report, Room to Grow, is, and we did talk, we did use the specific address location, right? So we didn't take into account, this is intentionally, we didn't take into account the service area that this. So it's entirely possible that, for instance, one center really strongly located, like maybe right on the county line, can serve both counties very well. We
Sure.
just don't, we don't have a way to kind of capture yet. We don't have a way yet to kind of capture um, truly the impact of a service area versus the county that they're in. But what we saw is that 51% of all the counties in the U.S. have a pregnancy center. Hallelujah! And now that tells me that 49% don't. So okay, we're going to keep that number, and we're going to grow in that direction. And we've used that. We've used this tool actually to kind of help refine our ability to launch new centers. We have a program called the Life Launch program, where we launch new organizations, primarily up to this point, that are interested in going into areas of greater need. And so we certainly see an area that is either very dense in population and underserved because of it, which is the other factor you called out, or has no pregnancy center in that county. We've had, I think, 5 or 6 opened in counties that did not have an existing pregnancy center available to them. So we've been excited to do that. It's kind of helped sharpen our focus and kind of orient our thinking, to know where to go with those places. But the one challenge two challenges that we realize is we really are going to need more pathways, more ways to reach them, which goes to the services dynamic. Are we using the right services? Could we see more ultrasound services? Yes, absolutely. You called it out earlier. We have more than 70% of all of our pregnancy hub locations have ultrasound. We can easily see that going to 100%. No reason it shouldn't be. Of course, there might be some instances where a local center board has made that kind of a calculus where they said, well, we
Yeah.
don't need to be that. Maybe because that there's something in nearby that does that, and we understand that. But on the face of it, there's places where we can see adding more services that strengthen those services and also broaden them as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I think for the clinics who are not providing the medical services, having that close referral partner might be satisfying that need. But at the same time, towards growing and making things even just one step closer for a client to have those services going, yeah, more clinics go. Usually that non-medical stage of the clinic's life, happens before they go medical, and that's just part of that natural progression towards growth for that given organization. That makes a lot of sense.
It is,
Uh,
and every board should be asking themselves these questions. We know that ultrasound increases, by our research, it increases the the decision making process like 3 times. She's 3 times as likely to choose life because of an ultrasound. Now, I can also add, our the same research that is a few years old, but not that old. It says also, if she comes back for a second visit, that too increases her probability apart from the ultrasound, it increases the probability that she'll choose life by nearly as much. So if we have compelling services, if we have a compelling and engaging relationship, that we start well with her, and it draws her back, whether it's to some other service or to continue the conversation, both of those things can be very powerful. And both of those things, then we see, increase her ability to choose for herself to carry that child to term. And so we want to see both of those increasing. See her more, and also or ultrasound. We are excited for that.
yeah, and I think that it seems to reflect if there's a way to measure the amount of trust that she's placing in that group or the person that's helping her, that's probably got some correlation when it comes to her decision making, or how much weight she might give the voice of that person she's talking to at the clinic.
Yep.
But
Certainly
yeah,
helps her mindset realize that even if we don't do everything perfectly, we're at least conveying something to her that gives her that courage. That I appreciate my colleague Betty talks about encourage means to give courage, right? We give her courage to do
that's
this, and
good.
we need to we celebrate all of the women that get served. Charlotte Lozier estimates nearly 2 million every year by the pregnancy help movement. We celebrate every baby that is saved from the risk of abortion. The truth is, though, as you and I, Jacob, know that we haven't saved one single baby. We have empowered her to save her own baby, and that's really that
Mm,
joy of bringing her the information that she needs. Providing the services that help her know that, and we need to see more of that happening across the country and around the world. By the way, just for those that haven't read PhD's Room to Grow, the U.S. has hands down the largest network of pregnancy help organizations in the globe, with averaging more than 4 pregnancy help centers per 500,000 people. The next closest country to us is Italy, and after that is Zambia. Now, Italy has an amazing network as well. But they've been at it since 1975, and that's a network all kind of contained. Like we're not our movement is connected in many ways. Certainly through Heartbeat, through our friends at CareNet, NIFLA, and where lots of folks like to affiliate with all of the above or some of the above or whatever.
sure.
But I'm always talking about the pregnancy centers as a whole. In Italy, they were all part of one entity called Movimento per la Vita, and they've been at this, and they have last numbers I heard were 360 pregnancy centers, what we would know as pregnancy centers, and then 42 maternity homes. So they have been
Okay.
growing that network. That's the next largest. Now, after you get Italy and Zambia, we begin to get the numbers go way down as far as per capita. And so that's been an interesting kind of understanding. And yet
Mm,
in the US, there's still room to grow. There's still more people that can be reached. We did even a brief city look in the report. We just looked at 5 cities and kind of using that per capita. So, for instance, or I'm sorry, Los Angeles County is
sure.
essentially Los Angeles, right? We use that kind of as the metric. There are 29 pregnancy centers in Los Angeles County, like yay, or in the Los Angeles metro area. Let me say that, and like that's exciting. 29, like that doesn't exist in that geography. It doesn't exist to that degree and density in any other part of the U.S. or anywhere else in the world. Yet, when we look at the actual per capita numbers, they would be almost not quite, but almost one of the smaller countries in the globe. That with a 1.45 pregnancy centers per capita. Why is that per 500,000? Why is that? Because there's a lot of locations, and we celebrate, and they literally are the number one area in our country for locations, but per when we take that number and put it against the actual density of the population there, it's,
Population.
it's
Yeah.
way underserved.
Yeah, and it seems like you're highlighting there's exponential room for growth, globally when it comes to other countries. Like and there's some countries where it's probably like ground zero at some point, um, and starting. Yeah, like it's just. Um, but that's a huge like that. Yeah, the room for growth is enormous, even in some parts of the world, and where there's no help or little tiny bits of help available currently.
Yeah, and of course, in some cases, there are a few countries where such efforts are either illegal or would be operating against a declared policy. China, France, those are the kind of places. Of course, there are countries that are very much closed off to Christian thinking in general, right? Certainly, some of our Muslim countries are that way. North
Mm,
Korea, of course, is one of those that it would be can't
yeah.
imagine. It doesn't mean pregnancy help is not happening. It just means that the kind of our traditional knowledge of, or how we would see the method of a pregnancy center, that kind of standalone entity where people can go and get connected. It doesn't mean that it's not happening. It just means it doesn't quite look like that for us.
Yeah, maybe they're having to operate underground or without public visibility.
Right, or in connection with some other ministry that's a broader service ministry, and so that pregnancy help might be happening within that happens here in the US as well, where we have some churches have established these community centers, dream centers, where it's a myriad of services, and pregnancy help is often happening within those, even though there isn't a specific corner carved out that says this is the pregnancy center, right? But it's still happening where she's
Hmm.
empowered to make a life decision. So we know that those things are happening. Those, of course, are harder to count, to evaluate from a distance, but we know that that does happen.
Yeah. So going back to the U.S. Um, and recalling something I heard Abby Johnson say, it was either at a CareNet conference or a Heartbeat conference. I don't remember which, but she did this talk about hours of operation and how when Planned Parenthood is open on a Saturday or they're open until 8 p.m., how there's room for growth when it comes to the pregnancy clinics in the area competing to match their hours or beat their hours when it comes to being open, which is obviously, using volunteers and staff is no easy thing to do, but it's critical and important to be open, as many hours. And I feel like there's room for growth on matching the hours of our
So
competition.
you're basically kind of teeing up the focus of of another white paper that we're in the process
Okay.
of discussing. We've done some additional research. Of course, this kind of inspired it, using the information what we have of hours of operation uh, for the option line, right? So option line is a program here at Heartbeat International, which basically has over 2,000 organizations or locations that are on option line that we help serve. Now, setting aside the some of the housing and adoption services and just focusing on pregnancy centers, we evaluated about 1,500 locations that are on option line and the hours that they're open. And I literally, we were just doing this, pulling this information together, and you're right, Abby's right. Less than 10% of our pregnancy center locations are open on Saturday, and that is important because that's when that is important, particularly when if there's an abortion clinic nearby within driving distance. That's critical. I know our sidewalk friends, sidewalk advocates for life and 40 days for life,
Hmm.
those guys, when they're taking their time, they're most of them are volunteers, some of them are kind of missionary staff members, but when they're taking their time to go and stand out on the sidewalk on that Saturday and the pregnancy center is closed, that's a huge missed opportunity that we have. And so it's going to be
Yeah.
one of the things that we're going to be talking about more specifically is, are we open? Here's another one that this actually shocked our entire team. We knew this was an issue. We didn't know the numbers and how big of an issue was, but even on Fridays, Jacob, is the number is less than 50% of our pregnancy centers are open on Fridays, which is a weekday. And here's why that's important, and more important now than ever, is because the abortion pill itself, chemical abortion, the entire movement is shifting. The abortion movement, the big abortion, is shifting to chemical abortion. We called this out a couple of years ago that we knew in 2020. We were saying in 2020 that the number would be 50% of all abortions, and that was a trend calculation. It wasn't something we knew because we know abortion reporting is a challenge. But here we are sitting in 2022, and of course 2020 was COVID year, and we haven't actually seen the numbers come out from the abortion industry, which we think of the most accurate numbers. But using the CDC numbers, which is only a partial count, we know that this is true, that 50% of all abortions in 2020 were chemical abortions. Now, why is that important? Because most often the chemical abortions are prescribed and done when it was still required of them doing it in the doctor's office, were encouraged to happen on Thursday or Friday. And the reason for that is because the symptoms then that follow, right? As you know, you mentioned Abby, as her movie Unplanned shows, that the symptoms that follow is heavy bleeding and pain, pain, cramping, those things. That's intentional. That's what the drugs, the two drug protocol is designed to do. And so what they were doing was basically giving her these prescriptions on Thursday or Friday so that she essentially has her abortion, sadly in her dorm room or at home in her own bathroom. Our friends at
Yeah.
Students for Life call these bathroom abortions or toilet bowl abortions, but they do that so that those symptoms can be had over the weekend, and then therefore she can, in theory, return to normality. Albeit a post-abortion normality on Monday. Well, here we are. We're sitting and we need to intervene with her, and yet our locations are not open to receive her. Now, the good news is option line is still functioning because we function 24/7, 365. Abortion Pill Rescue Network is functioning because that also is 24/7, 365. But this is going to be something that if as big abortion shifts, we're going to have to revisit these ideas about hours and hours open and how to serve, and that may challenge some. In many cases, I know many centers have already done this. They recognize that relying on an all volunteer or primarily volunteer team is going to have its issues, and that's going to require a better vision, stronger vision for staffing even into
Mm.
difficult days. And that's why Friday and Saturdays is going to have to be an issue. And almost no, I think it's 0.4% on Sunday, which that we understand. That would be a challenge under any circumstances. But this is an area we're going to have to speak into.
Yeah, and I don't know what the numbers are for Planned Parenthood being open on Sundays. I don't know. It probably depends on the location. I mean, it's probably. I'm not sure what the percent would be, but
Well, and
um,
keep in mind that they are changing the equation even as we're running to catch up. They're changing the equation. They're going they're basically doing mail order abortions, right? So
yeah, that's the big
Amazon will
shift.
function any time of the any Amazon will deliver abortions on Sundays and Saturdays and Mondays and Wednesdays and everywhere. So we're not sure what that new landscape looks as far as the arc of those things, but it is a current problem that we need to
Yeah,
wrap our minds around about being more available when she's in that valley of decision.
yeah. The new sidewalk is the virtual sidewalk, which is fighting or competing on Google and with branding, and it's a different. Well, yeah, the virtual space for people who are shopping online, and allowing, yeah, and the sidewalk might involve advertising and, yeah, search engine marketing efforts, but it's a different landscape, than the physical, because of, yeah, ordering it from, well, either ordering it from Amazon or ordering it from overseas, or
Right.
going across the border to go to a pharmacy. Like, those are some of the new spaces we're competing in.
That's true. And as the abortion industry changes their tactics, because they're trying to preserve their bottom line, and it's which is of course terrible. But they're going to be have abortions anywhere, anytime, for any reason. That's their goal. And our limitations to some of this came along with kind of the healthcare mindset of like, well, doctors' offices operate between 9 and 5. True, but ER rooms don't, and urgent care doesn't. They have different hours, and we're going to
Mm.
have to to do some rethinking if we are truly about the abortion minded, that abortion bound person. If we're truly going to be interacting with them, we're going to have to be there when she's looking, and that of course is a digital response. It's a marketing response, but it's also a missional response that are our people ready to talk to her and to receive her. Of course, our people are here at Heartbeat. That's one of the great things we get to do is serve in that way, and at least be that friendly voice that connects them. And we can even set appointments into the center services as those are made available to us. But there's nothing like making that live transfer to that warm person who's ready to receive her, that complete stranger we talked about earlier, to help them as they walk through this valley of decision.
Yeah, and speaking of Heartbeat, I for clinic directors looking to answer or to respond to the desire to grow, I would encourage the conference, the Heartbeat conference, the CareNet conference. One of my favorite. I really like the Heartbeat conference, honestly, because it's full of so many good tracks, and you can essentially get the variety of education that you might need from industry leaders. And what's amazing about that is that you can go in knowing that you need help in a certain area, and then you can find probably 2 to 4 workshops that will provide you with some insight, some evidence, help you fast track your learning curve, and help you go down that new road towards growing that part of your ministry. And
Yeah,
so,
thanks for that, Jacob. It's really a smorgasbord, a menu of things that people can tap into. Everything from board business to marketing conversations. Not only that, connecting with our exhibitors and knowing what
yeah,
good services are there available to them. Ours is coming up at the end of March in Jacksonville. For all of those even cold climates, not that you're in a cold climate, I know you're in Arizona. So,
I'm going to
but
go
for all of
anyway.
those, but all of those that are in cold climates are going to want to get to Florida at the end of March and enjoy hopefully some good sunshine, warm weather. But that very much that kind of spectrum of things available, and we're actually doing it. We started this for the first time last year. We're actually doing 2 conferences at the same time. So we're doing the in-person conference, which we love and enjoy, and get to hang out with 1,000 of our closest friends, maybe more this year if we're in Florida and the weather excites more people. But we also are doing a virtual conference. So even if you can't travel, you can participate still in that learning track. The information is different in both environments. So that gives us more experts and more people that are doing good work. And there are those that are going to be training and teaching on the virtual conference, and then those that are going to be there for the in-person experience.
Yeah, and so yeah, for clinics who are opening their doors or just opened within the last year, this is the place to go to find out all of the things you didn't know you needed to know. And then for clinics who are looking to grow, it's always a good place to go to find new ideas and a network and ask other even just interacting with other directors and asking them questions or talking to the workshop leaders and the different speakers and essentially leaders from across the country, all coming together under one mission and vision and having so much common ground when it comes to passion. You can find answers in different outlooks and things to consider so you can yeah sort of come
It's
back equipped.
It's true, and even the conversations when around the lunch table or the dinner table are excellent. You meet people who are in some other part of the country, maybe even some other part of the world, which we get to enjoy at Heartbeat International. But you get to learn and see what they're facing, and sometimes I find that these are good conversations because they sometimes are a peek at where things are going. Like I'm in a red state, but our politics have been changing, and I'm talking to my friend in the blue state who that their politics changed years ago, and they can see how that things are going, or they can see, well, I'm next to the blue state, or I'm next to the red state. How can these things work together? And we can't manufacture those all the time, but they happen in amazing conversations, either in kind of a Q&A or from a workshop presenter, or even just at sitting next to each other or standing next to each other in line for Starbucks. This is nothing like it to get connected. And I would highly encourage. Now, you mentioned those that are new or relatively new, but I every now and then I run into someone who has been in this movement for a long time, and they say, "Oh, I stopped going to the conferences years ago," and any of them, because it's always same stuff. It's like, well, you're not paying attention, because we have all kinds of new things that we're discussing. We are intentionally finding people who are pushing the envelope, who are pushing into areas of services and ways to do things that are finding successes and exploring new ways. So it's a great place to come, whether you're seasoned or just brand new into this. Because, by the way, we want our seasoned veterans to be sitting in those lunches and dinners, so they can be the ones
Yeah.
that are sources of information.
Yeah, the person that's been, the executive director for 24 years has so much to offer. And meanwhile, usually she doesn't come to the conference, she may not hear about these new ideas that are popping up over the last couple of years. And it's important to be there for those ideas that are being crafted, year after year, especially when it comes to, like, the whole COVID scenario has a lot of new pieces that have come into play when it comes to virtual marketing, when it comes to competing in that virtual space. Like, the landscape has shifted and is continuing to shift. And so we, as a group, we need to continue to be responsive and proactive on trying to reach, essentially to compete where our clients are looking.
We do,
Um,
and let me also say this, because I've run into this as well. We also need what that seasoned director brings. Like, they ask better questions of our workshop persons, or they're asking better questions because they have experience. They've also walked through
yeah,
some things that are challenging. How do you have that kind of longevity in ministry, and how do you have that? And it's because you've learned some things, and we need to rub shoulders together like that. We need to have the scripture talks about the older should encourage the younger, right? Because they've seen some things, and they can say, they can say, oh, it will be okay. Like, I remember when I first went to a conference, someone said, it takes about 10 years to really understand what's going on. And I thought to myself, I don't have that kind of time. I need to figure this out a lot faster. And one of the ways that I did that was by sitting at the feet, listening and rubbing shoulders with those who had been in the ministry, seen some things, learned some things, and I tried to glean as much as I can until time passed. And I've been at this now for a lot of years, and have learned a lot in the process.
yeah. For the directors who are in year one, they might feel like a freshman in college. But then for those who have been in it for 24 years, they're essentially working on their doctorate, or maybe they're like in a master's program, and they're pouring into some of those younger
Exactly.
students who are looking to find their way around the campus.
Exactly. And that's every bit about the faith mission that we're on. We're learning to walk in our faith every single day. And the minute we get satisfied that we're at that place, then we're in the wrong spot. We really need to maintain that sense of constantly walking, learning to grow our faith, and learning to walk in our faith better. And that is very much a part of the mission of Pregnancy Help.
Awesome. All right. Well, I think that might be a good podcast. I think we might be there. Um, I think, and I really appreciate your time, Jor-El. I think this will be good for executive directors to hear, and I think most of them know who you are, but just to hear this encouragement to grow, this encouragement to be refreshed, and I just think they're going to find this to be helpful and encouraging. I hope that they find encouragement to open up a new location in an unserved area, and then in order to add STI testing, add parenting classes, add an ultrasound service if it's not there already, to continue to grow. And because growth can happen locations, with services, with hours of operation online, with virtual marketing and the
Yep.
new sidewalk, with branding, in these different areas. There's room for growth, and so it's not just like in one plane. It's more of a multifaceted. There's always room to grow, as there's room for women who need help, and it's real. And in the end, the need to help women in this scenario is an evergreen need, and
True.
it's going to be present in 50 years. And so we need to keep working toward, serving God's heart and acting as His feet and hands, so that we can help those who need help. Just as if we were in their shoes and they were in ours, we'd want them to be helping us if we were caught in that bad scenario.
hmm Evergreen is a good way to describe that, and I think some of our pro-life friends are seeing the uh, we pray Lord will do this for us, the reversal of Roe v. Wade as the end or the finish line, and that is the farthest from the truth.
No.
It can be the beginning of the end, um,
Yeah.
of abortion's grip on our nation, but it still means that there's a lot of work to done, and until that life is protected in law, we will have a lot to do. And I suspect even once that happens, we'll still have
Yeah.
things to do as the
I think
church.
even if all the laws protected life, there would still be a need to help women
True.
who are in an unplanned, unexpected pregnancy and who are not desiring to be a parent. They still need love, care, compassion,
Absolutely.
um, and essentially a friend who can help them through that journey. And I think, and then that friend comes with that, connects with that trust element. And so I think this is an evergreen problem, regardless of the laws. However, the laws have a big impact, but I don't think it's like a light switch by any means. I think it's more of people need help when they're in hard situations.
Sure, and that's why we call it unplanned, unexpected pregnancy, right? It's something that we'll be facing no matter what. We even work within countries where the law does seem to protect women from abortion, but in fact, it's a law in name only, and it's not being enforced. And so, it doesn't just because a country, some of our South American countries have had good laws protecting life, but they have to be enforced and then they have to be followed through. So it's not that just because the law does it means that there will be no abortions. And if there are abortions, there will always have need for alternatives to abortions.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate your time, Jor-El. I'm so excited to share this with people, and so thank you for being on the podcast.
Oh,
It's always a pleasure to see you and to hear your wisdom and all the thoughts that you're ready to share. It's enjoyable. It's
well,
enjoyable and helpful.
it's a privilege and an honor to be a part of this movement, and it's a joy. It's been a lot of adventure. Let me say it that way.
I have an announcement to share. IREPS.com is looking to hire a Christian marketing manager with a Google Ads focus. We're looking to find somebody who is passionately pro-life, who is a strong writer, has experience with Google Ads, who enjoys digital marketing and thrives on data and analysis, someone who really enjoys learning and improving in the digital marketing space with a natural ability to blend intelligence and heart to identify client specific solutions. Um, and so, if you know someone who might have some of these attributes, you could check out the link in the description to find a link to this job opening. And I hope that you would, if it's you, please apply. Please reach out to us. If it's someone you would refer as being possibly a good fit for this job, please introduce us to that person. Thank you so much.